All right, welcome back to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I am Jason Green, bringing you brand new interviews right here on YouTube. I'm excited about today's show. It's at the airing of this, it would have been Jani Lane's 61st birthday. And I know that Jani Lane had touched a lot of my viewers and people all over the world with his music. I was fortunate to have interacted with him many times, all pleasant experiences, and a person that's definitely missed. So to us, he was an international rock star, an incredible songwriter. But to my guest today, Maddi, he was dad, and we're going to talk to her about what it was like growing up with Jani Lane, and also what she's up to now. So all that and more right after this. Just wanna waste some time with you. Sometimes it seems too good to be true. Nobody out there to waste time with you. All right, please welcome Maddi Lane.
Hello.
Hi. I'm so glad that you were able to do this and show a different side of your father, and share him with so many people who appreciated his music. And it's so great that you're here. And it was just so random that someone who played with you ran into me in a city on the road and said, "How would you like to have Maddi on?" And I was familiar because you had been singing and have your own career, and it worked out. So I'm so glad you're here. So we'll go all the way back to the beginning. You were born in 1997, and so your dad was married to Bobby Brown first, and they were married from 91 to 93, and you have a sister, I guess a half sister, Taylor, and then your father married your mom, Roanne, from 96 to 2005. Does that all sound right so far?
Sounds right to me. Yeah.
Right. I feel like I'm reading you a report on your life.
My biography.
Your
Yeah.
biography. And listen, it's obviously an experience to have a father who was a rock star, but your mother also had quite the interesting background. Did your mother date a president?
She did. Yes. That's actually kind of a fun fact that comes out every once in a while with friends. They'll be like, "Oh, like what were your parents like?" And I'm like, "Well, my dad was a rock star. My mom was a model and had dated Donald Trump for a short period," which is something that people find very, very interesting, shocking. They're like, "What in the world?" So I joke I could have been his daughter. I could have been Ivanka, I think is his daughter's name. I could have been Ivanka Trump, I guess, in another lifetime. But thankfully, I'm me. So that's just a
Yeah,
fun.
maybe he would have said he would have dated you if you were his daughter. Never mind, we better
Yeah.
not. Let it go.
Anyway.
But anyway, but that is a crazy fun fact that not many people can say. My mother dated the president. How did she meet your dad?
So she met him at an earthquake convention in Los Angeles, I believe, is the story I hear. And they were both in the industry, obviously, ran into each other. I think she knew of him and his music, and they got to talking. I think one thing led to another. They connected, and I think the rest was history. I don't know exactly what their story is in detail, but that's how they met. So they met in LA, both in the industry, earthquake convention, and then they start talking, and then she's like with him on tour sometimes, obviously becomes kind of a groupie, hangs out, and then they get married and have me like a year later after they got married. So yeah,
I
they were
got to
together
ask you
for quite some
first.
time.
I got to ask you first. What the hell is an earthquake convention?
I guess earthquake relief convention, probably like a charity event, because of Los
Event, I see.
Angeles and California experiences a lot of earthquakes. So I think that's what it was.
That was probably a little bit after Northridge, I'm thinking, which was
Probably.
was
Yeah.
the big one there for a while.
Mhm.
So okay, so interesting start. They have you, and listen, at the time that you're born, the prime of Warrant and the prime of that scene has already been done. Grunge has come in. Your father was one of those people in Warrant as a band that kept going. They didn't stop. Even though they weren't playing the arenas, they continued to make music. They continued to make records. Now, your dad would sort of be in and out. Warrant would change lineups several times. At what age do you realize, okay, my dad's not like every other kid's dad?
I would say probably around like 7 or 8. I think when I was younger, I knew he did music. I knew he would leave a lot, go on tour. My mom would play his music for us in the living room. She'd put interviews on of him. So I knew he was doing something on TV, but I didn't realize the scope of what he was doing, I guess. I just thought, oh, that's Dad's job. He does music. But then I realized, oh, he has like millions of fans and puts out these really great albums. And I hadn't really comprehended the music until I started getting older. So 8 years old is when I started noticing, and I would go on tour with him sometimes or go backstage. I would go to rehearsals, and when he was recording albums, I would go listen to his recording sessions sometimes. So it started clicking then. It was always really fun to be a part of his world a little bit.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then at some point, you're seeing people recognize your dad.
Mm-hmm.
He was, on MTV. He was a famous guy. People knew him. And when you go out, I'm sure occasionally people will come over and recognize him. Is it a strange feeling?
It was strange. Yeah, it didn't happen as often as you would think. We did live in LA together, so he was probably amongst a lot of different personalities, celebrities, musicians. So maybe he blended in, but every once in a while, you'd have people come up and ask for an autograph or a picture. And my dad was always very intentional about not having me in pictures to sign
Mhm.
anything unless I said it was okay or I felt comfortable. But he always wanted to make sure I didn't get roped into the limelight or my pictures weren't taken out of context or anything. He was very protective of me. So I
Yeah.
always appreciated that. But yeah, it was cool. I started being like, wow, like my dad is kind of this, he is a big deal and this is interesting.
We're looking at you and your dad. Looks like in front of Grauman's Chinese Theater, I think.
Yep. Yeah, we were, in Hollywood, right?
Yeah, Hollywood. Yeah, and it's interesting because Jani, your father, was so known for being nice to fans and being appreciative. He really didn't have one of those reputations that a lot of people did. I think he was very, appreciative of people uh, and and being successful. Did you notice that?
Definitely. Super down to earth. And even to this day, people still message me and say, I met your dad back in 1980, whatever, 1990. And he was the nicest celebrity I've ever met. Felt like any other person. Like he really asked me questions, wanted to get to know me, didn't make me feel like I was a burden, and really like kind of funny and cheeky. He always had a way of making people feel special when he was around them. So that's something that I've tried to also embody when I talk to people and all of that too. So I definitely noticed it, and people still tell me to this day. So I know it must be true.
Yes, and I can attest to it because he made you feel like you were just as important as anyone else in the room.
Mhm.
And as I said, I would see him ever so often at different things. And being my age, Warrant was a big band for me. I'm a little, I was a little younger than some of the bands that came before. So when Warrant came out, it felt like it was my band. It felt like it was meant for my generation. I was 15, 16 when those songs were coming on the radio and on MTV. And over the years, getting in the music industry, I had met him a few times, and always just such an incredible guy. And you always thought, wow, if you're going to be a fan of somebody, because they say don't meet your heroes, don't meet someone you're a fan of. Yeah, he was such a kind person. I'll tell you one of the stories. We were here in Las Vegas at Caesar's Palace, and Warrant was hired to play an exotic dancer ball. And so basically, it's like the Oscars for strip clubs. And and they give they give these ridiculous awards, best bathroom attendant, best DJ, best light, and then also some of the best featured dancers. And I don't think your dad was thrilled to be singing Cherry Pie for the millionth time in this situation, but I'm sure it paid well, and he was in a pleasant mood. But that night, we were going to Shaquille O'Neal's birthday party, which was at the top of Caesar's Palace, and
Wow.
it felt like right out of the movie The Hangover, which was filmed in the Caesar's Palace. It
Yeah.
was just weird and surreal, and you get quartered off to this area. It's me, him, and Ron Jeremy, so it's even more surreal. And where your dad was talking to me and sort of opening up about things that were going on in his life. Some of it I'll keep private, but I remember him showing me his driver's license, and for the first time telling me what his real name is. And you can tell us, what is your father's full name?
Yeah. So his full name is Johnny Oswald, John Patrick Oswald. His name was going to be John Kennedy Oswald, I believe, but with the assassination and everything, John Patrick Oswald was what his final name was. So Johnny is what he went by growing up. And now you can, I guess, see why Janie and Johnny, they're pretty similar. It's just the spelling of Johnny, but Janie came across a little bit more edgy, cool, kind of simple. And I'm not sure where Lane came from. I think he just said it kind of like matched and kind of became a stage name that he really liked. So he went with
Mhm.
it. Maybe he was inspired by someone else with the last name Lane and liked it. But yeah, Johnny Oswald. I could have been an
Yeah,
Oswald. I tell people that all the time.
you could have been, or well, how come you're not?
Well, because he was Jani Lane. So I guess
You take
naturally
the
I'm Maddi Lane now. I'm not Maddi
Yeah,
Oswald.
that's true. You'd be better off taking the Lane name. But he was explaining to me, John Kennedy Oswald, how insane would my parents be? Because John F. Kennedy was shot assassinated a year before your father was born. So having that name was just so strange. And every now and then I'll tell people that, and they're just shocked. And like you said, I don't think everyone realized that his name was Johnny, but everyone called him Janie, obviously, at that point.
Yeah.
He had a band, Plain Jane, uh, before Warrant, right?
He did.
Anyway, so Jani Lane is what the world knows him as. So where are you growing up? Where were you? You were born in California?
Yes. So I was born in Van Nuys outside of Woodland Hills. And I lived there for a few years with my mom and dad. My dad was on the road a lot, in and out. I actually lived through not a hurricane, an earthquake. We have hurricanes in North Carolina, where I am right now. Earthquakes, obviously, in California. So I don't remember it, but I remember my mom saying that she was really freaked out. She was alone, like rocking the crib with me. So that was like 0 to 2 years old. And then from 3 to 8, I lived in Ohio.
Mhm.
And that was where my dad's family was. A lot of my aunts and uncles were there. So we decided to move there to be closer to family and have some support. And I loved being near them. That was a really fun time for me.
Yeah, and
That's it right there.
we're looking at some young pictures of you and your dad. So were your parents still living together with you in Ohio and your dad traveling? Was that still the situation?
Yeah, still the situation. They didn't divorce until I was 8. So
Mhm.
towards the end of our time in Ohio, that's when I moved with my mom to North Carolina. But yeah, 3 to 8. This picture was actually us in LA. This was our
Okay, yeah.
LA apartment. Yeah.
I want to let people know that you have a YouTube channel. It's Maddi Lane, and people can check it out. I'll put a link in it because you share some home videos of you and your dad, and it's very touching. It really shows a human side. Your dad putting on these ice skating parties and things like that with you, and scooping the ice cream for the kids. And I think people would like that. So we'll we'll link that. But so yeah, to you, he was dad. Now, 8 years old, your parents divorce. What becomes the situation next?
So there had been a lot of lead up to that divorce. I don't want to divulge everything, but bottom line, we know he had an alcohol addiction issue. My mom also did. So there was a lot of conflict and tension between them, and clearly their relationship was not working. And I was kind of in the middle of that as a child, which I probably didn't need to be, but that's kind of what happened. And I was sad. I didn't like the fact that they were splitting, and I knew that meant I would have less time with my dad if I was living with my mom, vice versa. But I was relieved because even as a child, I kind of wanted them to both be happier apart. I was like, if they're not well together, I want them to be apart. Like I wanted them to be happy. So I moved with my mom to North Carolina. Her mom was in the hospital, in and out, kind of sick. So she wanted to be there for her. So I went with her. My dad went to LA to continue music and had another girlfriend eventually. I ended up actually living with my dad for a period of time in California and got to know a lot of his band members, his friends, and their daughters and kids that I became really close friends with. His new girlfriends, and got to know them. So there's some interesting dynamics at play for sure. I bounced between North Carolina and California for years in my elementary, middle school. I was like a ping pong ball, pretty much.
Yeah, I can imagine, and two different worlds completely. But
Yeah.
it's good that you stayed in your father's life.
Mhm.
Now, you said that you knew he had alcohol issues. Obviously, your father was troubled. It's no secret. Do you think that your father was abused? Because it certainly seems like he had some demons growing up.
Yeah, I don't know 100%. Obviously, we don't have him here to validate that, but I know from what people have said now. I didn't, of course, talk with him much about this as a kid. As I've gotten older, I've become more curious about my dad's backstory, what he must have gone through, his trauma. I'm very self-aware with the trauma that I've experienced from some of this too, like generational trauma and making sure I don't repeat cycles again. But I do presume there was definitely some abuse, whether it was physical, sexual, emotional. Like there had to have been something that kind of disrupted his peace and brought him trauma, just seeing how things played out for him. But yeah, he definitely had some demons. But I will say, despite that, he wasn't perfect, but he actually really did. I always felt loved by him, even when he couldn't always show up or he was fighting his own battles. He always made sure to treat me really well and love me. And he always loved spending time with me. And I really always felt that. So I always appreciated that. And I appreciate it more now as an adult, seeing that he must have been had dealing with so much and struggling to show up every day, but still made sure he showed up for me when he could. So I really appreciated that. It makes me miss him, you know.
You probably offered a good balance for him. You know, battling those demons to have a child who's innocent and loves you is probably a
Mhm.
nice thing for him. It certainly seems that way in the videos. It seems like he liked being a dad. You know, from the short clips I saw.
Yeah, he did. He did for
And
sure. We had a lot of good times.
this is you and your sister, I believe, right, Taylor?
Mhm.
She's a little
Yeah.
bit older than you. Did you guys have a bit of a relationship growing up? Were you close?
Yeah, we did. We weren't super close as far as, like, siblings that lived together, grow up their entire lives together, but we almost felt more like cousins because we never lived in the same household. We would visit each other frequently, but she lived in Louisiana most of the time, and I lived in wherever my mom or dad was, so either North Carolina or California. So we would visit on holidays and birthdays, but we weren't super close. We're actually right now trying to stay in touch more often, and now that we're both more similar in age, we're like late 20s, 30s, we can relate a lot more to each other, and we have each other now to bond over a lot of what we went through that we didn't realize each of us was going through. So, yeah, she's very important to me, and she's definitely done her best to keep up, and she sends me gifts, and I send her gifts, and it's been really sweet. So, yeah, I love her.
That's great, and again, you guys have a common bond that no one else has. You know,
Right.
and you, again, there's so much exploring, as you said, because your dad would pass away when you were about 14 years old, I believe, and so you're left with all kinds of questions. And your father definitely had a secret side to his life and his addiction. Now, this is, I think, how most of us remember your father. I think this is sort of the image with the big eyes and the blonde hair uh,
Yeah.
and what people choose to remember. And normally his big smile. And like I said, most people had so many nice things to say about him. It's not something that happens all the time, especially in this crazy business. So, as you become a teenager, a young teenager, do you feel like you saw his problems escalating?
I think I was more aware of it because I was getting older and, you know, as you're growing up around your parents, you're learning more about yourself and then you start to be more aware of their patterns and behaviors. Maybe things that felt normal as a kid, you're like, "Wait, maybe this isn't normal," or, "Oh, my friends don't really have parents that do this." So I started picking up on it more, being more intuitive about it, and he was escalating in certain ways as well, I think. You know, kind of the back and forth. You know, he was going to court, battling to have custody of me, and then my mom would do the same thing, and they were going at it for many years. And he had a kind of a tumultuous relationship with a girlfriend. I don't need to name her, but kind of on and off with her. And she, I think, brought some toxicity to his life as well. Then met Kimberly and he got married to her. So I think he was just kind of up and down. It was a roller coaster. You know, sometimes I would be with him, living with him or visiting him, and things would be really good. And sometimes he would be on a low. And I kind of knew to just keep my distance and be supportive where I could. But I knew I didn't fully understand what was going on. And I had people around me protecting me and kind of, you know, being like, hey, let him handle this. We'll take care of you, you know, if he can't. So I had buffers, but I was definitely aware of it. And it was sad to see because, you know, I always feared that I could lose him, but you never really believe it can happen until it does. So it still took me by surprise and was really upsetting. But, but yeah.
You, I got the feeling in the brief times I spent with him that your dad really, like a lot of musicians and a lot of men, was fearful of being alone. And maybe that's why he was in so many different relationships and things because I think there's that fear, and this marriage didn't work. And he was still talking to, when I saw him, he was still talking about his first marriage. This was, you know, many years later. It was
Mhm.
still impacted on him, and I got the impression that he always wanted to go out and do something or and have a drink because it was better than being home alone or alone with your thoughts. I mean, you probably saw it that way as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think it's easy to find a distraction sometimes rather than confronting what's really going on. And unfortunately, I don't think everyone in his life was for him or fully had his best interest in mind. I think he did get taken advantage of in some different ways. The industry can be really rough on you, but he also needed to take accountability for his actions too. And I think he was starting to. I think sometimes it just happens a little bit too late, or different things happen in your life that you can't control and can have adverse effects on you that you don't even realize. And yeah, he just had a rough go about things, but I did see him fighting and trying. I really always saw he had that soft, loving side of him just wanting to be a dad, wanting to have love, wanting to be at peace. I always saw that and felt that with him. Just sad I couldn't find it, or it might have been too late. But I'm just happy that his soul rests in peace now, and I know he'd be proud. So I just do him proud every day. I try to.
That's very well said. It felt like seemed on the outside that he was on a roller coaster because he would get healthy and then he would fall and he would try to come back. I saw him here in Las Vegas, and this is towards the end. And Warrant was back together playing an outdoor amphitheater, and I saw him before the show, and he was fine. And then I would say maybe 5 minutes before the showtime, he just started having some liquid courage shots. And when he got on stage, I'll never forget. I mean, everyone had tears in their eyes. He
Yeah.
just couldn't get through that show. Who knows what was going through his mind? Who knows what the pressure was? But it was too much for him, and he just disappeared off into the night because I don't think he wanted to deal with it or could deal with it. But he made some strides after that. We all thought this is it. Warrant decided to move on without him for a period of time. But it's interesting. He subbed with Great White for a little while, and those guys say nothing but good things about him. That he was very together and that he sang great. And do you remember those times?
Yeah, I do remember. I remember he was on tour with Great White. I remember meeting them, hanging out backstage. They had their kind of like their like snacks, like in the like green room area where they have like their snacks and stuff. I would always go back there and hang out with them and eat candy, and I always thought it was really cool. So all of them are really supportive, kind of like almost like uncle figures, I guess. Kind of like of course, at that time, I'm not seeing them as like these like superstars. I'm seeing them as like older guys like dad. So I'm like, all right, they're just friends of dads. We're just hanging out. So it's cool now to think back that I was around all of that at the time. I just didn't quite comprehend it, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I do remember. I have fond memories. Sometimes I came out on stage and helped announce the next song or would make an appearance at meet and greets. That was definitely a
Yeah,
fun
that's very fun. And again, that's part of this roller coaster. That
time.
was a high. Everybody said for your dad. Your dad made great solo music too. He has a
He did.
great solo.
Yeah.
Back down to one. Really, just this great underrated solo record. If anyone watching hasn't heard it, you really want to hear Jani Lane. I recommend that record. And he battled with his demons, and we know that in 2011 he passes away. Can you remember the last time you spoke to him?
Yeah, it's a little blurry. I do remember the last time I went and visited him that summer. It was July, end of July. I was out there and I didn't see him very much. He was married to Kimberly at this time, and she has a daughter that I would hang out with. I have friends out there that I would stay with and hang out with as well. So, one of them being my dad's manager. So, I went out there. I knew immediately the energy was off. He wasn't really coming around. I could tell he was kind of dealing with something, maybe sick. There was code words and things, and I was like, okay, clearly something's not going well. So a lot of people would step in and be like, let's go do this. Let's go to the amusement park. Let's go eat, kind of distracting me and keeping me away from him. I really wanted to see him and check in on him. Obviously, I'm a curious, loving daughter, but I knew to give it space. But he came out one morning. I was in the house. He came out of his room and like gave me a kiss on the forehead and said he loved me. And that was kind of it. We didn't really talk much after that. And I was like, like looking back now, it felt kind of like a goodbye, but I didn't know, obviously, and I was like, "Okay, he's just having a low point. He'll come out of it again like he always does." But I leave from that trip. I think I said bye to him. I must have said bye before I left, but he was, I guess, relapsing at that point. And I get back to North Carolina. I'm with my mom, and she starts getting phone calls that something's not quite right. I think at one point we and him had talked on the phone, and I'd been a little frustrated, or we were fighting about something, maybe my mom or me not living there. I'm not sure. Maybe that was previous. It's all kind of in like all over the place in my brain now. But I remember feeling regret that we didn't end a conversation on better terms, or that I seemed frustrated at him. He must have taken that really personally too. We always kind of had trouble with like, I sided with my mom a lot. I was a mama's girl, but then I love my dad, and like my mom, had some issues with him. So I think I kind of took on a lot of that and was her little minion. I felt like sometimes, and would kind of go at him even when it wasn't my problem. It was her and his problem. So there was a lot of dynamics there, but I do remember her getting phone calls from Abby, his manager at the time, a few other people concerned that this might be like the last time. Like, this is really rough this time. Like, we're not sure he's going to get out of it. And I was like, what do they mean? Like, he always does. Like, are they sure? And he was in a hotel, I guess, by himself. And I'm not sure what led him there. I still don't even know the full story of what happened. I do know he was left alone. People were visiting in and out. I think something happened where he got hit with something, or he might have gotten in a fight with somebody. And then he had a note in his pocket when they found him that said, like, I am Jani Lane. So he didn't have identity on him. I don't know where his wallet was. I don't know if he lost it or someone took it. But we got the phone call officially that he had passed away. And me and my mom were obviously really upset, shocked. I was like, what? I didn't believe it yet. It hadn't sunk in, but we hugged each other. And I remember the lights in the entire apartment, like on and off, like really big. Like, it was not just a coincidence. I believe that was truly his like last passing of his energy, and he was gone. And I was like, that was crazy, because he always mentioned traveling through light as like a spirit if he passed away. Kind of a weird conversation to have, but he always said he would come back through light. Like, that was how he felt like he would connect with people. So I know he was doing that to communicate. I haven't had many interactions since, or I haven't had any like paranormal, people probably think like, oh, have you seen lights flickering a lot? I haven't, but I hear some songs, or I just feel his presence sometimes. But yeah, that was a really surreal time for me, and it didn't really sink in for years after that, honestly. It was hard to process.
I could imagine. So he again, it's a mystery to his death, how he ended up in this hotel by himself. Some people said he did that from time to time. As far as the note goes that said, I am Jani Lane, I think it had a phone number. Um, do you believe it was his handwriting? Did he write the note, or did someone put it in his pocket?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't look like his handwriting to me. I don't think it was, but who knows at this point? I would love to actually look into it more now that I'm older and kind of investigate it. But I'm like, I also don't want to dig up old like skeletons in the closet either. I want to let his soul rest. I don't want it to be this ongoing thing, but I'm not 100% sure. I would think someone put that in there, maybe to
From the
identify.
outside, it's what I think also. Maybe someone was partying with him, or who knows, or I'm just speculating, and then drops him off somewhere.
Yeah, maybe.
Again, we can't change it. The greatest thing I've learned about grief is you can remember people for what you want to. You don't have to remember the bad times. You can remember the good times.
Yeah.
The memory is yours now, and what you do with it is up to you. Your father will never be old. Jani Lane will always be, to fans, the person that we saw on TV. There is no old
Right.
Jani Lane. And for you, your dad will be the dad that you remember and that you choose to remember. But it was really shocking for people on the outside. I
Mhm.
can only imagine being his family, but boy, everybody was so bummed out. And even though we knew that your dad would relapse from time to time, as you said, you always thought he'll pull it through again. And then finally, this sad thing happens. Sometimes wonder if he knew how much people loved him, and appreciated him and pulled for him, and just couldn't help him to get out of such a dark spot. The hotel that your father passed away in is now a family shelter. I don't know if you knew this. It's no longer a hotel.
Wow.
It's for homeless or misplaced families, and maybe something good comes out of that sort of
Yeah. Good
tragic.
energy there. Yeah.
Yeah, sort of tragic place, because your father was a rock star and a celebrity, it becomes this morbid fascination with people and true crime and what happened to Jani Lane. And again, these are things that you're exploring as an adult. But at the end of the day, we can't change the outcome.
Mhm.
This is what it is. So when your dad passed, he was married to Kimberly. Is that right?
Yes. From what I know, they were still married. I know there was some kind of shady stuff going on in the background with one of his exes. I think she came back in the picture, was trying to get him to sign divorce papers and kind of spending his money. Again, I can't confirm that 100%, but that's what I heard from multiple sources and family and friends that knew what happened. So it seemed like at the end of his life, he was still being taken advantage of and he wasn't being treated the best. Again, you can't blame one party. There's always, there's always two sides to every story and the truth. So not placing blame, but that's what I know of the situation. So yeah, he was married to Kimberly still. So she was widowed to him. And she's actually passed away as well, which is unfortunate.
Yes, even another sad tragedy. She passed away a car accident, I believe, right?
Hmm. Yeah, me and her were pretty
And
close over the years. So it was really heartbreaking to hear.
yeah, and there was some debate though whether or not he was really married to her, and thing I'm sure you've heard this. That there was some what the end of his life where they were at. He's buried with her. His ashes, I believe, are buried with her in Texas. Did you have any issue with that?
No, I mean, I think my dad really did love her. I mean, I didn't see the ins and outs of their relationship because I wasn't living with him when they were together. I was mostly living with my mom and visiting. I lived with him for a period while they were together, but not for long. So I can't fully speak on their relationship. But from what I saw, I think he really truly loved her. And that's the last person that he was intimate with, probably, and spent a lot of his time with. So, and if they're both on the other side and not in this physical realm anymore, then they can be together that way. That's symbolic to me. I think it's fine. I
Yeah,
think his energy is not stuck there. I think his energy is very much wherever he wants to be. So doesn't bother
I
me where
like
he's.
to hear you say that, because sometimes you wonder, your father was from Ohio and lived in California, but that you were okay with where he was and who he was with. And if that's where, as you said, he's not in that cemetery, his
Right.
remains might be there and it might be a place to come and pay respect. But your father has moved on, as they say. So it's obviously a complicated life. One of the questions, and this is a sort of hard one, is publishing. Your father wrote every Warrant song. He
Yeah.
was an amazing songwriter. There is no Warrant without him. There's no. He really did. As they say, he was the song and dance man. Well, he did it all, and his songs were placed in movies. His songs are continued to be placed in movies. From an outsider, the feeling was that his daughters, you and Taylor, should inherit his publishing. Um, did he have a will?
He did not have a will at the time, so that complicated things. And at this time, I was young teenager going to college. I didn't really understand what was going on. I was just kind of like waiting patiently for attorneys and honestly, my sister Taylor, honestly, to kind of step up a little bit and like look into all of it, and kind of just keep me posted on what was happening. So I wasn't really caught up with everything and aware of it until like late college. And then there was talks of dispersing an amount of money from the estate, but there was a lot of moving parts there. There was, it was just complicated. So it took a while. Finally that happened and it settled everything. So, and now publishing, obviously ongoing royalties, we don't get those. I think that goes to a publishing company, maybe Sony or someone else. But actually the band Warrant, some of the members have been really good about like working on that for us almost and being like, hey, like anything that we get, we want to share with you guys too, because we feel like you deserved more than you got. Obviously, I'm not here to be like, I need all the money in the world from this. Like I have my own life, I have my own career. I'm not depending on it by any means, but of course, like we were his kids and I know he would have wanted us to be taken care of. So I
Yes.
really appreciate that people are coming to our defense and helping us, with some other royalties and things like that from Sony. But otherwise, yeah, we probably, I don't know how things were supposed to have played out, if things would have been different, if there was a will. It's been kind of messy, but we've all kind of gotten it figured out as much as we can anyway. And I'm just living my life regardless. So,
Well, your sister Taylor definitely was very vocal about it, and
mhm.
she isn't really in the public eye as much as you are. And but she did speak out, and there was some lawsuits and some issues, and I don't know how much you can or cannot speak about, but it seemed like Janie's partner or manager might have done some shady things with funds. And I don't know what you want to say and don't, but it seems like in his death, listen, it seemed like he was trying to sue the family at some point. Is that right?
Yeah, he sued the estate, claiming that he didn't get enough of a cut, I guess, during his time managing him. Maybe there were some agreements that weren't, I'm not sure what him and my dad's relationship was as far as that goes, like legalities and money and what they agreed to, what was signed, what wasn't. So I always sensed there was tension between them. Like, I grew up loving Abby. He was like my godfather. He would take me out, do things with me, spend money on me, like was very like, spoiled us. But yeah, that was quite a surprise. I did not expect that. But I had a feeling my dad and him probably had some unfinished business. So it's like surprising, but now it's really not. It's kind of a common, I think, dynamic that happens with managers and artists. So it was disappointing to see that happen, especially he didn't really come to us at all about it beforehand. He kind of just did it, and then it complicated things for us for many years. And we ended up getting a less sum of money from it. And again, I wasn't in a place, I was kind of in my own world. I was in college. I wasn't really abreast of everything at the time. So I didn't speak out as vocally as my sister did. I'm glad she did. And I was frustrated with her, but I kind of just let things play out now. I don't try to control too much. And now we have people more on our side cooperating with us and helping us now. So that's a relief. But yeah, it was a little weird at first hearing that, so I don't really talk to him anymore.
Yeah, I can imagine. The story, people can read about it for themselves or whatever. But one of the things when I said I was going to speak to you, a lot of people asked me what happened, with that situation. I believe, and look, who am I? But I believe your father would have wanted his kids to have his money, and his publishing and his legacy. Now, so I mean, it seems like you guys got a little bit screwed on the deal, and this is why everyone should have a will and check it twice and check it 3 times. I'm not trying to tell the audience to feel bad, but it does feel like the right thing wasn't done by your father. But you do continue his legacy, and that to me is so great because you sing, and you kind of kicked it off by singing some of your dad's music. I love your choices. I think the ones that you picked are songs that I also love of your father's. Tell me how the decision comes about that you're going to sing the first time one of his songs.
So I always grew up loving to sing. I was a little shy. So as my dad was this big entertainer, loved being on stage, got a lot of energy from it, I was a little more shy. He would try to encourage me to sing more in front of him, in front of family. And I was always kind of hesitant. I would do it with him. I loved that he loved it so much. And I knew I could sing. I knew I enjoyed singing, but it scared me. So as I got older, I started becoming more confident in my voice. And after he passed away, I felt very motivated to live on his legacy. And I started listening to his music more and appreciating the music, the lyricism, everything. I was like, wow, like I really wish I would have had, the maturity. Obviously, I wasn't old enough when I was around him a lot and younger to really appreciate his music. But I wish he could be here and we could like talk music together and I could really dissect his brain and, ask him all these questions about his songs. But I was like, well, the least I can do now is be able to honor him through music. And I enjoy music and I'm feeling more confident in my own voice. So why not take some of his music and repurpose it? The fans would love it. It would make me feel more connected to him, even though he's not here physically. So I decided to do Heaven First, I believe is my first one I did of his. And people loved that. I was like, I think late high school, early college when I did that. And people were really loving it. And I loved being able to go to the studio and record and have a product that was nice and finished, but it was very raw too. I made sure to kind of keep it simple on that track and let it speak for itself. And then I did a few other songs. I kept it going. People were really wanting more. So I did Stronger Now. I did Sometimes She Cries. Have I done anything else? I'm not sure. I think those might be the main 3 I've done of his. I've done another song with another artist. I was the female vocal lead on a song that was unfinished. And then I also did my own original song. I've only done one. I have a lot of writings in my notes in my journal, but one released song of mine called My Turn, and that was a few years ago. So that's on Bandcamp if anyone's interested. I have some of my songs on Bandcamp. It's maddilane.bandcamp.com, I believe.
Okay. We'll put a link to.
Yeah.
It makes it easy for people. And so that turns the world onto you, and starts to give you your own identity. but people are excited to see you. You're sharing your father and your legacy with him through his
Mhm.
music. And so you perform. You started to perform live, and it's kind of cool. You would come out with members of your father's band, right, in Cleveland.
Mhm. Yeah, I did the tribute show there, that was really fun. I sang Cherry Pie, Heaven, Stronger Now was I don't know if I said that earlier, that
Yeah,
was a
that's one of my favorites. Yeah,
yeah, Stronger
great
Now is one of
stuff.
my favorites as well. That was one of my favorite songs of his generally, so I love being able to record it again and do my version of it. But yeah, that was a really fun show. That was my first time really singing in front of a crowd like that. I had recorded music, I sang in chorus kind of in school, but I hadn't really performed in front of an audience on a stage before. So besides karaoke maybe, but that was nerve wracking, but really, really cool. I was really proud of myself. And I got to meet some of the people that knew him and grew up listening to him and had met him. And they were telling me like, you are so much like your dad. Like you have the same energy. You're so nice to everybody. You have a presence like he did, like his aura is with you still. And I thought that was really cool to hear. Made me really happy and connected to him. So I really enjoyed that. I'd love to do more, even with Warrant or the tribute band again.
What is your relationship with Warrant? You said that some of the guys are looking to help you with some of the royalty type things, but what is the relationship?
Yeah, I am close with some of the bandmates, not all of them. We've talked about wanting to do shows together or me come out and do a song with them. It hasn't happened yet. A few of the times that they've reached out and they were nearby in North Carolina or neighboring states, I've been either out of town, busy, not able to. So we haven't found a time yet, but I would love to. So maybe this year will be the year that we do it.
Yeah, I think it would be great. I think that for them and for the fans who come to see it, now you're old enough to do these things. For a while you were still a kid dealing with your own life.
Yeah.
So I think that would be great. I'm going to be seeing those guys very soon, and some of them have been on this show before. Joey last, and
Mhm.
uh, and yeah, it's something that would be a nice tribute. I think your uncle performed with them not too long ago. Is that right?
Yeah, my Uncle Rick. Yeah, yeah, he's awesome. I haven't seen my Uncle Rick. He was supposed to actually come to the Cleveland tribute show. He couldn't make it, but I haven't seen him in a very long time. We actually have a video on YouTube together where I'm playing harmonica and he's playing guitar and singing, and we're performing. That one got a lot of hits, and it's really cute. I love watching it still. But yeah, he's super talented and still rocking and rolling. He was the oldest son of the family. My dad was the youngest, so he's still rocking and rolling, which is really cool to see. And I would love to perform with him at some point.
He played Uncle Tom's Cabin, right?
Yeah, he was the
Yeah.
one that played the guitar riff, like the acoustic kind of like run in the beginning. That was
Mhm.
him who recorded it on the original track as well. So he loves to perform it live.
Yeah. It's great that we come full circle. So people my age, it's now nostalgia. But there's so many young people who are fans of your dad. Do you see that? You're a young woman on Instagram, and have a presence. Do you see young fans sharing pictures of your dad and things?
Yeah, I do. I've actually had some funny experiences with either fake accounts, people pretending to be me, pretending to be him, fans that would like be kind of obsessive at times and try to like have a relationship with me. And I'm like, I don't know who you are, I've never met you. So it gets a little obsessive, but you just deal with that as you need to block or whatever. But most of the fans are really, really nice and just message me. They're like, hey, like, I don't know if you'll see this, but I loved meeting your dad. He changed my life. He helped save me. I went to this show. I had his posters on my wall. It's really cool. Mostly older fans. I would say there's a few younger fans and people my age that know of my dad through hearing his music in movies or Guitar Hero, the video game. So people know of him and think it's really cool that he's my dad. But the most impacted fans were the ones that were like growing up with him. So they're now in their like 40s and 50s, typically 60s. So they'll reach out to me a lot and they'll tell me how much they loved him and enjoyed him. And I always respond. I try to. If I don't, I'm sorry. I try to, though, to most people and say thank you because I really appreciate that.
Did you ever have an issue with the idea of Warrant continuing without your father?
It didn't bother me. I mean, as you said earlier, I don't think there is really the like Warrant, the essence of Warrant, what it stood for. There's not really ever replicating it to the extent that my dad was Warrant, but I do appreciate that they're trying to carry on his legacy, play his music, and the lead singer is really talented, and they found a pretty good match there. Obviously, I think my dad's number one, but still, he's a very talented artist, and I respect it, and I'm I'm really proud of them for keeping it going. And obviously the original band members are still doing it too. So I like that there's some old and new with the band. They can keep kind of honoring what original Warrant was.
Yeah, I think it's good for people to hear those songs, and they do a good job of playing uh, um, all of it. You know, they don't just put on the greatest hits; they really dig deep into songs.
Yeah.
And while they make new music, it's limited. They really honor your dad's music and play the songs that people wanted to hear. It was part of their lives, obviously, uh, as
Yeah.
well. But it's good that that you feel like it's okay, because I think sometimes you'll see people go, "Oh my God, there's no Jani Lane, no Warren," and they shouldn't. Fans love to be armchair quarterbacks or referees, or everyone wants to give their opinion, and now with the internet, we have
Mhm.
1 second, we can just do that. But so we've talked a lot about your dad and your memories of your dad and music, but I want to talk a little about you, because you have your own identity and you have your own life. So tell me what I know. You just went through school, right? Are you still in school now?
I am. So I graduate in May. I'm in a media and communications master's program at Chapel Hill in North Carolina, where Michael Jordan went, if for anyone who doesn't know. But yeah, I went there undergrad as well. So yeah, undergrad from 2016 to 2020. Pandemic happens. I work a little bit, and then I decide to come back to do more media and communications focused work, which is why I'm really passionate about social media, like creative, like making videos, music, all of that. My left brain is very, very strong, I guess, from my dad. So, and my mom, honestly, they both were in the media and creative fields. So that's why it gets me going. So that's what I'm pursuing now. So we'll see what happens when I graduate in May.
Yeah, well, congratulations. What a big thing to have coming up. Your first graduation was a little screwed up due to the pandemic.
Yeah.
Now you got a chance to celebrate. People can go to your Instagram, it's Maddi Lane, and kind
Mhm.
of get an idea, because there's definitely a little bit of the communications and things that you do, some interviews, some projects you get involved with, your fitness as well.
Mhm.
You listen. I look at your page. I go, I got to get to the gym. It's
I appreciate it.
motivational. Um,
Thank you. Yeah, fitness is something that it's been a consistent kind of outlet for me. I feel confident when I do it. I love being able to share it with people. I'm actually getting ACE certified. It's like group fitness training certification. So I want to be able to give back and help in that way. I love music too. I don't think I want to pursue music as seriously as my dad did and go travel the world and do the whole gambit. I want to keep my life a little more simple, but I do love talking to people, telling stories, being visually compelling, showing my personality, and of course helping people and inspiring people. So yeah, fitness and then making content is kind of like the bridge that helps me do that. So it's been really fun to explore that.
yeah, and you seem like a bright young woman, and you've kind of put your hands into a little of everything, to see
Mhm.
what sticks. And people see that on your Instagram. It's not just about one direction. And I think you could help other people as sort of a consultant in some of these social media things. You have that natural personality to be a brand ambassador, but also to sort of put together content behind the scenes. Am I right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love doing something in front of the camera, a little behind the camera, just bringing my energy to videos and helping, yeah, tell people stories mainly. I love to write. I love talking to people. That definitely inspires me. So I love being able to help other people do the same thing. And I would love to be able to do either like mentoring, consulting for brands and help people get more comfortable on camera or help them, tell their brand story more effectively in a more entertaining way. And I love my goofy, funny side. I love bringing that into videos more now as I get older and I'm more comfortable with myself. So you'll be definitely seeing a lot more of that. I love a blooper reel. I love showing people that it's okay to be not perfect and you can be yourself, and people actually really resonate with that and probably will like you more if you're not trying to be clean and polished. So this interview is kind of funny. I probably have seemed a bit kind of put together, but go to my Instagram. You'll see a lot more of my goofiness.
Yeah, and well, we talked about some serious stuff. You know what I mean?
Of course.
It's hard to have a natural funny time when we're talking about some serious memories. Um, but like as you said, if people go to your social media, they'll get to see more of you, and you keep updated on that. And I like that you're not just the daughter of someone who was famous. It is part of who you are, and I like that you are proud of your dad, but for the most part, you're your own person and you do your own things. And I think people will see that. And I hope that people will go give you a follow and get to know more about you.
Yeah, I hope so too. Please follow along if you'd like. No pressure if you don't want to, but I would love to have extra people to entertain and make videos for. So definitely keep updated. I post on there pretty frequently now. I'm trying to keep myself accountable. And music wise, I would love to record more music. Again, more so as a passion project, and just because I love doing it more so for my dad and to be able to interact with fans and challenge myself, take myself out of my comfort zone a bit. So I have some songs I've written. I write all the time. I just don't ever have the time to sit down, record, release all the time, but I would like to. So stay tuned for that as well, maybe.
Yeah, very cool. And one last question I want to ask you: is there anything you have of your dad's that you cherish? Something a memory, a physical, something you might have?
I have a whole like memorabilia shelf in my apartment actually that's dedicated to him. I have a few things of his. I can bring you along.
Yeah, I think people would love to see it.
Okay, so
I'm going to just pull it on you.
a few of his albums here, like his records on my shelf. And those that I have, this one, I have the cherry pie. I have two cherry pies, and then this one. As we know, it's kind of ironic because he wasn't the biggest fan of cherry pie after a while. I think he got a little jaded and resentful because that was kind of all he was known for when he was so much more than cherry pie. But it was something that put him on the map, and it became kind of a symbol of him. So I do have that. I do also have a few other things. I think in Wilmington, that's where I'm based. My family's based there. I'm in Chapel Hill for school right now, but Wilmington is where my family is. That's where I keep a lot of my like childhood pictures and keepsakes. So I have a few things there too, but I also have a portion of his ashes as well. I didn't mention that earlier, but I have a portion for myself that I keep with me as well. So that makes me feel like he's always with me.
Oh yeah, I think that's great. I think that it's good. I guess Taylor has some as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I believe
that's
so.
great. It's good that you guys can have that, piece of him with you. Whether he's where he's buried doesn't necessarily matter because he's always with you guys. Have you visited the grave in Texas?
I actually have not, which is kind of crazy. There's been a lot of different there's like memorials and sites and things. I obviously went to his memorial and did everything like that. But afterwards, I think I got so wrapped up in life, I and maybe avoiding it a little bit because it was kind of
Sure.
a reminder of his death. So at that time, I was young. I was getting ready to go to college, and I think I just kind of compartmentalized it out. But now that I'm older and I'm more at peace with what happened, I'm processing it a lot. Still in therapy, kind of working on how that affects me. Not having my dad, obviously, it does. I feel more ready to kind of go visit, face it. I'm wanting to talk to more of my family more, like my aunts and uncles and a lot of people in my life that I haven't talked to, just because that kind of, split us apart, even though you'd think it'd bring us together. I think a lot of us just got kind of wrapped up in our own world for a while. But as an adult, I see the importance of maintaining relationships, and I want to be honoring him and, kind of facing it more. So I'm definitely wanting to go visit at some point. That would be really, really special. I have some stepsisters that are also out in Texas right now, Kimberly's daughter. So I would love to see them in person. We've talked, but I haven't seen them in person in probably like 10 years, which is crazy. So I think we're long overdue.
Yeah. Well, now that you're older, you're also able to sort of bring people together.
Yeah.
Sometimes, as you said, people go their own ways, but now maybe you can bring some people together. We only have so long, and your memories are important. So you want to make as many more as you can while you can. And again, I thank you so much. I know the idea is not to spend your life talking about the tragedy of your father, and I want to make sure that people know that there's so much good, and the good outweighs that tragedy. Don't you think?
I absolutely agree with that. And that's part of the reason I wanted his music to live on through me is to kind of spin the negativity into something positive and something that people can take with them. And also, yeah, the new generation, my friends and people younger than me, if I'm able to recreate and repurpose his music, then maybe they'll be able to resonate with the lyrics and people will keep listening to his music for longer. I want it to be passed down as long as it can be. So yeah, I think it's really important to put a positive spin on it. It's good to recognize the bad and not avoid it and pretend it didn't happen, but we don't need to harp on it either. So, but I'm always open to discussing him and talking about him. I'm pretty at peace with the situation. I miss him every day. I wish he was here, but I know that wasn't meant to be, and he's meant to be kind of, at peace somewhere else. And I'm really happy that he's not suffering here anymore. So, and I'm glad I got the time with him. I did. I'm really grateful. I still got to hang out with my dad and joke and laugh and see his dorky fun side and go roller skating with him and, roller coasters he loved. I still love roller coasters. So anytime I do things like that, I always think of him. So yeah, I always have a positive association when I think of him now.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And again, I thank you for sharing just a little bit of him with us.
Hmm.
I know it makes a lot of people happy. And I want to make sure that we follow you and see where you go in your journey, because yours is really just getting started. And
Yeah.
it's exciting. And I really wish you the best. And I hope we'll see you again. You'll come back. We'll talk about when you got something new. We'll chat again.
Yeah. Maybe if I have some music on the horizon, we can talk about it.
That sounds great. I'd love to promote it and pass it on to the people. Thank you so much, Maddie, and thank you everyone for watching and spending a little time with
Thanks,
us.
everyone.
Just wanna waste some time with you.